ESPN Radio. You want hot takes?
No, I'm not going to apologize to Ryan Day. Everything we said about Ryan Day up until the playoffs was true.
Not bad. Come on, Kenner. You can do better than that.
To be fair, of all the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, Joe Burrow is the least accomplished.
Getting better.
1,000,000%. I 1,000,000% believe that the Dayton Flyers are afraid of the Wright State Raiders. That's why they come up with every excuse in the book not to play them.
There it is. The hottest take of them all. It's the Justin Kenner Show, presented by Frickers, live on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, everybody, we welcome you in live here on a Wednesday, the Justin Kenner Show, 937-518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in on the conversation. Be a part of the show, of course. Whether you want to call or text, I urge you to do so, and I appreciate those who do that. So take advantage of that and jump in on the conversation that way. We got a lot to get into today. Jason Fitz from Yahoo Sports, he's going to jump on with us, and we're going to talk about, the biggest news that happened last night. Right as the show ended, there was breaking news that came out that Jim Harbaugh, or I shouldn't say Jim Harbaugh, but John Harbaugh, out as head coach of the Baltimore Ravens. John Harbaugh no longer the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, right? Easily the most successful coach in the history of that franchise. 18 years, multiple Super Bowl appearances, won a Super Bowl, of course, and, right now just got, they had that classic of a game against the Steelers last week. 2 days after the Ravens lost against the Steelers 26-24, after their kicker missed, how long was it? I think it was like a 24. How long was the field goal? It don't matter. It was a last-second field goal, but it eliminated them from the playoffs for the first time in years. 2021 was the last time that they were out of the playoffs, and that was a year where they were in first place up until the halfway point, and then Lamar Jackson got hurt, missed the rest of the season, and they didn't make the playoffs that year. Jim Harbaugh, I keep saying Jim, John Harbaugh, just a year ago signed a 3-year deal. All right, and he's under contract for the Ravens, or was under contract for the Ravens through 2028. So it's kind of wild to see kind of what has unraveled and what has, happened since. Now, this is the crazy thing. This is why I always say every team situation is different. Because people keep doing this thing with the Browns for moving on from Kevin Stefanski, saying, man, the Browns screwed up when Kevin Stefanski, not even a day after he's fired, he's on a plane going to multiple interviews. This shows that people want him. And I'm like, trying to take a shot at Cleveland, saying that they're a bad organization because they did this. Well, is the Baltimore Ravens one of the most consistent winningest franchises in the history of the NFL? Are they a bad organization for moving on from a coach that every one of these 7 teams that needs a coach is duking it out for? I don't know. It's the right. I think, 18 seasons. This got to a point to where it sounds crazy to move on from a coach like John Harbaugh, but I've talked about this with Keith Byers multiple times. Multiple times. He said, at times, you have a head coach whose message runs stale. And I'd say, the AFC North has always been fascinating. It was one of the longest tenured head coaching divisions. Stefanski was there for 6+ years. Zach Taylor's been there for quite a minute. 18 years from John Harbaugh. We know how long Mike Tomlin's been there. The fact that we've lasted, the fact that this division has lasted over half a decade with the same 4 coaches is pretty fascinating as it is. To me, this is a definite, the message is running stale, which leads to him losing a little bit of the locker room, according to reports. Him not getting along with Lamar Jackson. The crazy thing about John Harbaugh is that you go back to the rookie year of Lamar Jackson. I remember that year they came out with the message saying that, or with an announcement that John Harbaugh was going to be relieved of his duties at the end of that season. That was the last year that Joe Flacco was in Baltimore. They had come out and said that, hey, that John Harbaugh will finish out the season and that they're going to kind of send him out in peaceful terms. Like it was 2019 or 18, whatever it was that Lamar was a rookie. And then Lamar Jackson, who was, drafted late in that first round. Many people thought he should have been a wide receiver when he came out of Louisville. Then all of a sudden, Joe Flacco and the Ravens, they were losing a lot. They announced that they were going to move on from John Harbaugh. They might as well just throw out the rookie and see what happens. They go on to win their last 8 games. Baltimore makes the playoffs, saves John Harbaugh's job, and then the rest is history. They go on to dominate the division. John Harbaugh is the head coach of a team that had a 2-time MVP at quarterback in Lamar Jackson. Probably should have been 3 last year. But John Harbaugh is now an official free agent. He can go pick wherever he wants to go. Usually a coach of his status doesn't hit the free agent market like this. I can't think of the last time that a coach of his stature was available. And, we're hearing reports today that everyone just keeps looking at the 7 teams that are available to acquire his services. There's reports out there, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter, that there are some teams who currently have a head coach that are reaching out to the agent just to kind of gauge interest a little bit. John Harbaugh is a heck of a coach, and it's not just because of the X's and O's, it's because of the culture reset that he brings to the table. And there's a lot of teams who need a head coach right now that I think are a part of that question. One of those teams being none other than the Cleveland Browns. I would love to sit up here confidently and say, my goodness, the Cleveland Browns have a legit shot to get John Harbaugh. And the question is do they have a legit shot to get John Harbaugh? Can he be the next head coach of the Cleveland Browns? Look, he has his parents have Ohio ties. There's plenty of quotes from former reports out there that he grew up a Browns fan, and that doesn't mean anything. The Browns are a dysfunctional organization that have a lot of question marks. It's not, you can't just throw it out there and say it makes all the sense in the world. There are some bullet points that make sense. Some coaches love to coach in a certain division. I think that John Harbaugh would make a lot of sense in Cleveland. I think that, if you go on to win in Cleveland and make the playoffs and get this train back on the tracks, or not even back on the tracks, but you put an official train on the tracks, that's going to elevate his profile more than it already is. But you look at the teams that are available. I mean, what job is available that you could look at and say, oh, yeah, John Harbaugh, that's an easy decision right there. All these teams that need a head coach, the majority of them outside of Baltimore are all picking inside the top 10. Which of the jobs is the worst job of all the teams that need a head coach? Whether it's the Raiders, the Titans, the Cardinals, now the Ravens, the Giants, the Browns, and I'm sure I'm missing one. There are all these teams, the Browns, these are not good teams. These aren't all good situations, but some situations have to be better than others. And the question I have, 937-518-1410, you could text or call into the show. We're going to get to Jason Fitz coming up around the corner. But is the Cleveland Browns job the worst of all the available head coaching vacancies right now? I mean, I put that out on the Facebook page last night. Everyone laughed at the idea. There's no way in hell that John Harbaugh is going to pick the Cleveland Browns. Well, what's he going to pick? The Giants? Outside of it being in New York, how has the Giants been any more functional than the Cleveland Browns over the last half decade? They have Jackson Dart. They do have Jackson Dart, but Jackson Dart seems a little bit uncoachable. Jackson Dart was warned and coached many times about the way he goes about throwing his body around recklessly, and he is quoted after he got hurt for the remainder of the season saying that he wasn't going to change it up, that he wasn't going to stop being aggressive, and that's what got him here, and he's not going to slow it down. So you're either going to have an uncoachable player or an unavailable player. Plus, you have New York, who makes a lot of bad decisions themselves. Let's not sit here and act like, oh, yeah, that there's a lot of talk. Give me some bullet points as to why the Giants' job is better than the Browns. Give me some bullet points. I'd love to know. I'd love to know why that job is better than the Cleveland Browns. The Raiders have obviously a nice little opportunity there, mainly because of the fact that, okay, you do have the number 1 pick. You're going to be able to go get Mendoza, and you're going to be able to start fresh. That's not a bad opportunity there. The Giants, I was burying them a little bit ago, but they do have the most talent. You have Malik Neighbors, you have Jackson Dart. The defense, they have one of the best pass rushers in the league. They're one of the more balanced rosters. The Giants is not a bad job, but to sit there and say that you guarantee that it's better than Cleveland, I don't know if it's better than Cleveland's or not. We'll rank those jobs coming up in a bit. But 937-518-1410, text into the show. I'm curious your guys' thoughts. Is the Cleveland Browns, do they have the worst job? Is that the worst vacant head coaching opening in the NFL right now? 937-518-1410. We're going to talk about this with Jason Fitz from Yahoo Sports when we return. What up, Shaw? Shaw says 3 10-win seasons in a row and missed the playoffs one time and the man gets fired. What are we doing? Sounds like a Bengal and Browns type of move to me. Good luck, Baltimore. But see, that's the thing. I'm going to kill the music real quick. I don't think it's because oh, we made the playoffs 3 straight years and we missed it and we moved on from them. I don't think it's just about that. I think they could have made the playoffs and been knocked out in the first round and they move on from John Harbaugh. Like, that's the thing. I disagree with that, Shaw. Like, I don't look at it like that whatsoever. 18 years, 3 playoff wins in the last 7 years that Lamar Jackson has been there. That's 7 years of underperforming with a 2-time MVP quarterback. I mean, like, there are stages and levels to this. Not everybody is running a race from the same block. Cleveland moving on from Kevin Stefanski, that had to happen. 6 years. They won, 8 games in 2 years? He's an offensive-minded coach, but they were the worst offense in the league for 2 straight years. That can't happen. That's why I defended Zach Taylor. I'm like, I get that he's not a perfect coach, but he's an offensive-minded guy, and at least the one thing that he brings to the table, they're one of the best teams in the league at that. Cleveland needed to reset that message in there because every time Stefanski walks into a room, they see a loser. They see a guy that has a message that is just continuing to lead them to losses and losses and losses. You have to reset it. The message runs stale. I look at, Harbaugh at this point. They don't see a loser, but they just see a guy that every time they get to this time of the season, it's, do we really want to run into a wall for what he has to say because he's been saying the same thing for 18 years and we're just not getting the job done. You can't continue to throw out the same thing over and over and over and it not work and expect it to be different. This has been the argument about the Steelers. That's why I agree with those people out there that say if Mike Tomlin leaves Pittsburgh, there'll be plenty of teams lining up to get Mike Tomlin, and I agree. But I also agree that Mike Tomlin, they need to be done with Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. If they go 1 and done in the playoffs this year, Pittsburgh needs to stop with this charade of Mike Tomlin, leader of men, blah, 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 blah. You won a bad division this year. Browns are horrible. Bengals are horrible. Ravens were horrible for pretty much all of the season, and Lamar regressed. I mean, this wasn't a good division. You're the tallest short person as far as that's concerned, Pittsburgh. So, no, when you say that, I don't get that. Shaw says underperforming. One could say they didn't win the playoffs because of Jackson. Shaw, even when they make the playoffs, they underperform. They can't get to a Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson, you can't get to a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson. You give him a running back. You give him Derrick Henry. You constantly spend money and make major trades on the defensive side of the ball. They do everything for this roster, and they continuously underachieve. So, yeah, underperforming, question mark? Underperforming, yes, answer. There you go. Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports. He's going to join us when we come back. 937-518-1410. You're going to have to text now because I can't take calls because Fitz is going to join us here in a few. But is the Browns job the worst available job right now? What is the best vacant? Of all the jobs that are open right now, which job is the best? Which one is the worst? 937-518-1410. Text us your answers. I'll get to that when we come back, plus Jason Fitz when we return.
The Justin Kinner Show. Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Texting enrolls you in a recurring automated marketing text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
The team's looking good this season.
I think so. Man, I miss playing football. Ever since I turned 40, I just can't find that fire I used to have.
Think it could be lower testosterone?
What do you mean?
I was feeling the same way. After 40,
Everybody, we welcome you back. It's the Justin Kinner Show, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM, 937-518-1410. That's the number that you can call or text. We'll get back to your calls. We'll get back to your texts coming up here in just a moment. Well, I haven't talked to this individual since last year. Well, it has been a few weeks, but Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports. Jason, welcome in. Happy New Year, by the way.
Happy New Year to you too, my friend. I don't care what Larry David says. You get to say that as long into the year as you possibly want.
Absolutely. Look, so it's funny because a year ago at this time, I started looking at some of my rundowns from last year at this time, and I'm looking at my rundowns. They're the same. Where do the Browns go from here? Where do the Bengals go from here? The Buckeyes, at least, were still, competing for a championship at least a year ago at this time. But yeah, it's always the same if you're a fan of any professional team in the state of Ohio, it seems.
Well, and look, so as a Raiders fan, one of the popular questions I've had in the last 24 hours is, oh my God, how much do you want Harbaugh as your head coach? My answer to that is, if you go all the way back to 1995, so however many years that is, I think the number is 17 head coaches I've seen in that amount of time. And I'll also remind everybody that John Gruden is the only Raiders coach since 1995 to make it to season 4. Jack Del Rio made it through season 3. No other coaches made it to 3 seasons for the Raiders since 1995. I say that because we got to remember at some point, it's not about the coach, it's about the organization. When your organization sucks, more often than not, you're doing this constantly because you just can't find the diamond in the rough. We all hope that we're going to be the Texans. We're going to find our D'Amico Ryans and our CJ Stroud in the draft, and everything's going to change. But more often than not, we're going to be, you and I are going to have the same conversation in at least 2 years. Like it might be next year, might be 2 years from now. We'll be having the same conversation about who's going to fix the culture now. And the answer is nobody, because it's broken all the way to the top.
Yeah. And what's crazy thing is the AFC North had the combined longest tenured coaches in the entire league. Stefanski was there for 6 years. You have, obviously Zach Taylor, who's still there. He's been there for 6-7 years, obviously 18 years for Harbaugh, who's no longer there. And Mike Tomlin, we think, is going to still be the coach after this upcoming season. We'll see what happens. But I want to, let's start with Cincy, because there's plenty of teams to talk about that have moved on from their coaches. But the one that seems to surprise a lot of people, although I'm not shocked by it, the Bengals decided that, hey, Joe Burrow's demanding change, and we're going to show him how serious we are about change by bringing back the GM, bringing back the coach. And Zach Taylor said they're bringing back every position coach as well. No changes so far. In fact, they're bringing everybody back. Are you surprised that the Bengals made 0 changes, at least thus far, at this point?
So I'm not surprised that Golden is back or Zach Taylor's back. I think I'd sort of anticipated that over the last month. I'm a little surprised. I'll buy the argument of, okay, we've tried every defensive coordinator known to man, and most of them have been pretty respected when they got the gig, and then they get the gig and the defense doesn't look any better. At some point, that has to be the ingredients you're cooking with. So how Duke Tobin remains consistently just employed, to me, is that, like, you have to look at something and say, okay, I get it. You don't want to change the head coach. You've talked to Burrow. You feel like Burrow's in a better spot. I'm sure they did all of those things. I want to believe. Your head coach says, hey, man, we can't just keep a revolving door at the defensive coordinator. We need to give it time to cook. I can buy all of that. But you got to change something. So I'm surprised that the GM spot isn't changing in Cincinnati. Certainly Cincinnati has tried. I got to stress this. Not every team tries to address their weaknesses. The Bengals have been trying to address their weaknesses on the defensive side of the ball and the offensive line in the draft for the better part of a decade. They just never get it right. So the same people are making the same decisions, and they're still not getting it right, all while we're watching Jesse Bates go over there and have a really good seat. You know what I mean? So, I just think you stack all of the bricks for Cincinnati. And to me, at some point, if you're not going to blame the coaches, which I'm fine with, then you have to blame roster construction. Something has to change.
Yeah, and, this goes back to a point I've made for a while, this framing of, man, the Bengals are failing Joe Burrow. And I said yesterday, I irritated some fans. I said, well, I don't know if you could say that they failed Joe Burrow, because technically everything that he has asked for, he's gotten. In fact, the most recent thing he got, he actually came out and spoke on behalf of Zach Taylor and said he likes playing for Zach Taylor and he wants to continue to play for Zach Taylor. But he wanted 2 number 1 wide receivers. He got him. He wanted Mike Gesicki back. He got him. Wanted Trey Hendrickson, which some of these things he shouldn't have to say he wants, but that's besides the point. Everything that he has publicly come out to say that he has wanted, he has technically received. I said yesterday, I don't think the front office has failed Joe Burrow. I think the front office has failed the Bengals as a whole, because sometimes you got to look at Burrow and say, well, I know you want 2 number 1 wide receivers, but that $30 million a year for T. Higgins, that's a nice couple of linebackers, maybe a better safety, maybe another pass rusher. That's the part that I'm frustrated with the front office about, is they got to start making better decisions on behalf of the team and stop being so desperate to cater to their quarterback, in my opinion.
I mean, no quarterback deserved in his entire career to be catered to more than Tom Brady. And we talk a lot about Tom Brady taking less money. I think it's overstated sometimes, but there is some reality to that Tom even said back when he was playing, like, hey, I'm taking less money because they're telling me where the money's going to go. So I do think that organizationally, sometimes it's about your transparency with your star quarterback. I mean, I watched Get Up this morning tell me that Lamar is going to pick the next coach of the Ravens. That's fine unless it doesn't work, in which case now you're doubling down on all of this. Like, at some point, you can't just do what the quarterback wants you to do. Again, I'll go back to my Raiders fandom. Max Crosby was the reason that Antonio Pierce got the job as the head football coach, because AP was absolutely Max's guy. How did that work out? Like, at some point, you have to, instead of listening to your star players, you have to go into your star players with a very concrete plan of, here's what we're going to do. Here's who we're going to acquire. Here's how the money is going to be spent. And you got to hope that they buy into that. That's a much better way long-term to actually build the entire foundation of your roster.
Yeah, like I don't think Josh Allen, and well, I might be wrong on this because him and Stephon Diggs clashed, but I don't think Stephon Diggs I don't think Josh Allen enjoyed losing Stephon Diggs. I don't think Patrick Mahomes enjoyed losing Tyreek Hill, but I think that they enjoy playing on balanced rosters. I know the Chiefs have taken a step back, but that's besides the point. The bottom line is I see T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. That's what people see. What I see is T. Higgins, and that money could be helped on the defensive side of the ball. Bottom line is they kept everything the same. I hate this question because we do this all the time. Is this the most important offseason in the history of the franchise? I think it kind of feels that way, because I feel like if they fail the team again and miss the playoffs again, we could be talking about Joe Burrow trying to force himself out of Cincinnati a year from now if things go haywire again. Is this the most important offseason in the history of the Bengals coming up?
No. And I'll tell you, the only reason I say no to that is because when's the last time that we saw a quarterback in his prime turn around and force his way out? It's just not part of the lesson. We've seen Andrew Luck walk away. That'd be my concern. My concern would be that Joe Burrow gets beat up for another year. His body's failing him. He looks around and he says, man, this beating just isn't worth it. I'm not going to play football anymore. But do we have a Carson Palmer-like situation where you have to retire to then be traded? That's just such a rarity in the modern NFL. I think if it doesn't go well, then all of a sudden you look at Joe and say, hey, man, we tried it your way. Now we got to try it our way. And they'll just rip everything apart there. We interviewed Ed Orgeron this morning on Yahoo Sports Daily. And the funny thing is, I asked Coach Joe, I was like, Joe better than anybody. What did you make of Joe's body language and the way he spoke at the podium, all of these things? And he said, to me, somebody just caught Joe on a bad day. And sometimes Joe has bad days, but he's going to be fine and he's going to put in the work. I just think that's what we're all defaulting to, is that Joe's going to wake up and he's going to be fine. They're going to continue to walk down this path. But I mean, while I won't say it's the most important, it's the most open. Like the Ravens right now, we have no idea. We have no idea today what the Ravens are going to look like in a few months. The Steelers made the playoffs, and I don't care. They still have a 3,722-year-old quarterback on a team that wasn't very good, with a defense that didn't live up to the dollars spent. And the Browns are in complete rebuild mode yet again. I think the most important part of this is that the division is wide open for the Bengals to win it. Go get the dang thing. Like this is an incredible opportunity. I don't know the division's ever going to be easier to win than it should be next year for the Bengals. So there should be pressure on that.
Yeah, I'm looking at this now, but I talked about, everyone says, is Joe Burrow the next Andrew Luck, or he's the next Carson Palmer. I'm like, I feel like the trajectory that he's on is the next Matthew Stafford. I mean, Matthew Stafford, and I'll always take Burrow over Stafford, but Stafford's phenomenal as well. Stafford was phenomenal in Detroit, put up a ton of numbers. And you look back and say, I just don't get how they didn't win more, how they didn't have playoff success with him, this, that, the other. I feel like Joe Burrow's on that Matthew Stafford trajectory. And we had a lot of Bengals fans say yesterday, hey, they could see him ending up with the Rams at some point. And I'm like, his personality fits Los Angeles. I think that fits the Rams at some point. But yeah, the Stafford trajectory, and that's more of a team trajectory where they just said, okay, we got to move on and try something new. It'll be interesting to see what the Bengals do at some point if things don't get righted here in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and I like that comp for Joe at some point, but I also, like I've repeatedly said, I think that Joe Burrow is the modern version of Dan Marino. He's going to put up video game numbers. And every year we're going to say, no, this is the year they got the right pieces around him. And every year it won't be the right pieces. Then at the end of it all, we'll be saying, how did he go to the Super Bowl so early in his career and never get back? Dan Marino went his rookie year to the Super Bowl, and everybody at the time, all the way back to whatever that was, 1984, everybody turned around at the time and said, he'll get back. No big deal. Never did. I think Joe Burrow has a real chance of being this generation's Hall of Fame quarterback that never sniffs a Super Bowl because of the organization he's with.
Well, the Bengals kept their coach. You mentioned the Browns a little bit ago. The Browns decided to move on from Kevin Stefanski. And I see a lot of people doing the fact that so many teams are desperate for Stefanski's services means that the Browns made a mistake. I think two things could be true at the same time. Stefanski's a hell of a coach and should be picked up quickly. And the other part could be true of it was time for him to go as well. Where are you with the Browns? Did they make a mistake moving on from Kevin Stefanski?
I don't think they made a mistake moving on from Kevin Stefanski, but I'll be interested to see if the next person can have more success, because I don't think we've seen enough to know if Shador's the starting quarterback in the NFL. And before anybody tweets me and tells me that makes me an ignorant racist that has never watched these football games, I want to remind everybody I was consistent. When everybody else was telling you that Michael Penix Jr. was the answer after, 4 games in his rookie year, I'm the guy that came in and said, I'd like to see more than 4 games. Like, everybody wants to tell you whether J.J. McCarthy is or isn't the answer yet for Minnesota. Who knows? He hasn't been on the field long enough for us to really know. I like 3 years before I make a judgment on a quarterback, but at least give me 2 full seasons. I don't think any of us have any idea if Shador can actually be a long-time quality starting quarterback in the NFL. I would be surprised if teams, no matter how much people want to make it a bigger issue, I would be surprised if teams walked away from a true starting quarterback in the NFL just simply to, air quotes, send a message over and over and over. We're too quarterback thirsty for that to happen. So then you look at it and say, okay, what's real? Well, where the Browns are picking this year in the draft, they're not going to have a shot, even with Ty Simpson coming out, they're not going to have a shot at a top 3 quarterback in this year's draft, I don't believe. So if they're not going to have a shot at a top 3 quarterback in this year's draft, and then you start looking around and saying they're paying Deshaun how much? Like, I think right now, logic, no heart, just logic, next summer is going to be a competition between Deshaun Watson and Shador Sanders to be the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. That does not feel like a playoff caliber team to me. So whoever steps into this role is going to have to figure out how to maximize a team that I just don't think has a clear path to the quarterback. So I don't know that they made a mistake moving on for Stefanski, and I also don't think it's going to be fair to judge wherever Stefanski goes versus the Browns, because the one thing I know is that if you're taking a second-time stab at a head coaching shot, you don't go anywhere where you don't love the quarterback. That's just bar none. So Stefanski isn't going to take a gig, in my mind, that doesn't have a clear understanding of who their quarterback is that they can win with right away. So I have a hard time judging if Stefanski goes somewhere where suddenly, if he goes to the Giants where they have better infrastructure talent-wise and they're able to make things work at the quarterback position, that doesn't mean that the Browns failed. It just means the Browns never had a realistic shot at that quarterback. So, I just think that the quarterback is more of the equation than we want to make it in these conversations.
Yeah, I saw Pro Football Focus. They put out their, they rank the supporting, they put out the supporting cast rating. And to no surprise, again, it's the average team PFF grade for combined rushing, receiving, pass blocking, and run blocking. No surprise that Cleveland comes in an absolute dead last on the offensive side of the ball, which also it's how do you know what you have? We saw Joe Flacco. I thought the guy needed to retire. I thought the guy just literally lost everything 3 weeks into the season. And then, he goes to Cincinnati where there's talent and he's putting up 300-400 yards a game, 4 or 5 touchdowns in some games. It just comes down to, is there talent around it? I don't know who Shador is. That's why I'm not going to sit there and say I want him to be the starter moving forward. But I also know they still have Deshaun. They don't have a whole lot of money. They can't just pretend that he doesn't exist. My thing is, I think you move into the season with what you said. It's a quarterback competition between Deshaun Watson and Shador Sanders, and one of 2 things could happen. One of the 2 hits, and it works, and Deshaun goes back to what he was in Houston, or Shador's actually the guy, and you get Carnell Tate in the draft, and now you have some talent. I just think this is a very interesting offseason. How do they stack up amongst the teams who need a coach? If Jason Fitz is a free agent head coach right now, Are they, and you're prioritizing teams, are they at the bottom? Is this the worst opening of all the teams right now?
No, I wouldn't touch Arizona. I would not come anywhere near Arizona. I think A, it's an irrelevant franchise. B, it's a non-passionate fan base that barely fills the stadium half the time. C, they've got Kyler Murray at a weird dollar amount where if they cut Kyler Murray, it will actually cost them more than keeping Kyler Murray sets them. So they'd have to trade Kyler Murray, which means somebody else would have to want that Kyler Murray contract all around. And then the fact is they just don't have as many. Like if you, no matter what you think, take your fan hat off. Maybe the best unit of many of these bad openings belongs to Cleveland's defense, right?
Yeah.
So, if you look at it and say, well, man, half of this equation is solved right now. I just got to solve the other half. I actually don't think Cleveland is as bad a job as some people want to make it. And also, by the way, the Browns were patient with Stefanski. So I feel like they gave him a real shot at the job. So I think you stack those things up. I think it's just an easy narrative to say, well, this job sucks. Right now, I would take the Browns over the Jets all day, every day, twice on Sunday. The real evaluation comes down to how do you feel about Cam Ward and how do you feel about likely Fernando Mendoza? Because frankly, if we're looking at the Titans, the only appealing thing to that job is that they have Cam Ward if you like Cam Ward. So if you're an offensive coach that looks around and says, well, no, I really think Cam Ward is him, then the Titans job's way more appealing than we want it to be. If people look around at Fernando Mendoza or Dante Moore and say, no, that guy is better than Cam Ward, I love that. Well, then, you've got a team in the Raiders that has Brock Bowers, Ashton Genty, and Max Crosby with a quarterback that's first overall and $110 million in cap space. Like those things become, I think, a little bit sexier depending on how you feel about those quarterbacks. So I think the Browns' job is being maybe undervalued in this process. I think the Cardinals' job is by far just the lowest on the total poll. And frankly, the one team I don't agree, everybody tells me Atlanta's a great job. Is it? Is Atlanta really a great job? Like they've got some really talented pieces. I don't know if Penix is the answer. I know that they're paying a bunch of money to Kirk Cousins, too old to pay that much money. They don't have a clear-cut path to a quarterback, and they just fired a coach that went 8-9 each of his first. Like, what are you doing? So, the expectations don't meet the actual talent level in Atlanta. So I'm not as high on the Falcons as some. I'm not as low on the Browns as some either.
Harbaugh to Cleveland. Is there any realistic chance that makes any sense at all? Some coaches like to kind of hover in those divisions. We saw that with Parcells. I know he did jump to the NFC East or whatever. You see a lot of those coaches kind of get recycled through divisions at times. And he's, his family's from Cleveland. There's always quotes of him saying how much he loves, he grew up a Browns fan. Put us out of our misery. Harbaugh to Cleveland. What's the likelihood of that being a realistic chance?
I mean, again, I'm concerned if I'm Harbaugh and I don't have a quarterback. And so that's still going to be a concern to me. But you want to talk about the opportunity. Like, if you grew up loving that franchise, which you're right, like all the reports have pointed out, fandom there, I mean, why not? If you're Harbaugh, why not at least take the meeting, talk to them and find out, especially look at this year's draft class, right? Like, I mean, just how much success they got out of a young draft class. Like, I get it. A lot of people, rightfully so, are saying, how the hell could you keep Andrew Berry? I understand that. I say look no further than what they did in the draft this year. Like Andrew Berry came off of he's on a heater. Like, he just had a great draft. So, I think if Harbaugh has the right relationship with Andrew Berry and the right understanding of the Haslams, I mean, it's a home run. For any of our teams that we're talking about here that stink, Harbaugh is a home run because he just simply stabilizes everything, right? Like, we can debate whether or not he had enough success with Lamar. I think that's sort of a stupid debate, frankly, because it ignores that you're in the same conference as Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. So when you say, well, my God, they haven't made the Super Bowl. Okay. I'm sorry. Harbaugh's not as good a coach as Andy Reid. I don't think that's a hot take. And Lamar, two-time MVP, it's not as good a quarterback as Patrick Mahomes. So the better coach-quarterback combo, they beat you. They beat you time and time again in the playoffs. I think that's the context we need. Harbaugh would be a home run. And frankly, I would remind the entire world that there is no salary cap for front offices in the NFL. I personally repeatedly have said, if I owned the Cleveland Browns, you know what I would do today? I would call Howie Roseman from the Eagles and I would offer him literally $100 million. Come over for $100 million. And then I turn around to Howie Roseman and I'd say, who do you want to be your coach? And if he says Harbaugh, then I go to Harbaugh and I say $25 million, $30 million. There's a number. Go full $1 million man, 80s Ted DiBiase. Everybody has a price. Find the price. I will never understand why dysfunctional organizations don't turn around and say the one thing you can't limit is how much money I spent fixing my organization. I'll spend $1 billion if I have to fix my football team. I got it. I'll just spend it instead of on my yacht. That to me would make the most sense.
Yeah, and the Haslams have it.
100%.
And I'm not doing the Homer thing and defending the Haslams here, but I know this sounds silly, but hear me out. Deshaun Watson, if he was the quarterback that he was in Houston, and I still can't wrap my head around how a guy in his mid-20s at the time that was a top 5 quarterback in Houston comes to Cleveland and just doesn't even look like that whatsoever. But if he hits with the receivers that they had with the offensive line, when they had Chubb in the run game and then that top 5 defense, that all should have worked. And I get that it didn't, but they were able to keep that together because they roll over that money. They do exactly what the Rams and the Eagles and a lot of those teams do. Those teams win, though. Cleveland doesn't. That's the problem. But they have the structure to do what those successful teams do. They just got to get that dang quarterback, and they got to get this head coaching hire right. So that's what I'm interested in.
And I think we have to separate Deshaun Watson, the man, for a minute from Deshaun Watson, the quarterback. And I'm always willing to do that in these conversations.
Yeah.
If you're just talking about Deshaun Watson, the quarterback, I mean, if we take everything else that we all knew at that time about the rest of his personal life out of this and just talk about Deshaun Watson, the quarterback, half the league would have killed to have Deshaun Watson, the quarterback. They thought they were getting a superstar top 5 player in the NFL. It fell apart. And it has hamstrung the organization. We know the why for why the Browns aren't good. So it's fixable. You just got to get through this contract. One more year of talking about Deshaun, and then finally they have freedom.
One more year. That's it. Last thing on the way out, Jason, I appreciate your time. College football, I mean, the Final Four is set. They're all Nick Saban disciples, all the coaches. So much drama, everything that's going on. I wasn't a fan of the expansion at first, but these matchups and just the talking points and just the storylines, everything, this has been a blast. But no bigger storyline than Kurt Cinetti in Indiana. We've seen him do it. He's beat Oregon once already beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. Didn't just beat Alabama, destroyed Alabama. Does this have a Cinderella storyline ending? Like, is this going to end with the national championship for the Hoosiers?
I think so. And I mean, man, their team speed on defense is one of the most undercovered, and depth on defense. And then you combine that with 2 receivers that are going to be playing on Sundays in a couple of years, and the Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback, who, by the way, I think it's fair. Some of the, how good is Fernando Mendoza conversations 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago were fair. I told you after the Big Ten championship game, I wanted him to show me what he had. And he did in that game. And then in that playoff game against Alabama, surgical, right? Like Fernando Mendoza is hot right now. He's playing better than anybody. I like Oregon. I think this is a very, very talented Oregon team. And Dante Moore's going to present the challenge. He's certainly going to present the challenge. But to me, the real national championship game is Friday night. Ole Miss and Miami is a great story, and it's the reason the college football playoff is going to expand. Like I hear you on that. I think Miami going on this run, the unprecedented ratings that we've seen throughout all of it, get ready for it. It's a 16-team playoff a year from right now. There's no doubt in my mind we are going to expand because Miami had this success and barely got in, which will justify the expansion of more teams. The bye week teams keep losing, which will justify elimination of buys. Bowl games were up 13% in ratings. College football playoffs through the roof, so none of it is hurting TV ratings. Expansion is going to happen. But yeah, I think the Cinderella storybook ending, and it's great for college football. I think Indiana is about to complete the single greatest brand turnaround we've ever seen in the history of sports.
All right, good stuff. Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports. Did Ohio State underachieve? Were you surprised how they went out?
I was surprised how they went out. I have a hard time calling this team this year underachievers. This is the modern NFL or modern college football that looks just like the NFL. Remember, we watched an undefeated Patriots team lose to a wild card Giants team in the Super Bowl, and we loved it. We're going to have to learn to fall in love with any given Saturday. Means the best team in the country for the majority of the year doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's who's the best on that day in that. I'm surprised Ohio State is already out of this thing. I am very surprised about it. I just think that is modern college football. What we're paying for in NIL isn't championships. It's proximity to championships. Ohio State certainly had that this year. They didn't capitalize on it. They'll be right back next year.
Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports. Jason, you the man. Appreciate you. We'll talk next week.
Appreciate you, brother. Have a great week.
All right, good stuff. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. We'll get back to your calls, 937-518-1410. More of the Justin Kinner Show when we return.
Justin Kinner Show. Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, and we are back. It's the Justin Kinner Show, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 WAM. Reds Fest is coming up here a week from this weekend. Does that make sense? Yeah. Doesn't matter. But look, they sent us a bunch of 2-day passes for Reds Fest. It's back. Remember, it was off last year? It's at the Cincinnati Convention Center, what used to be the Duke Energy Convention Center, but now the Cincinnati Convention Center. I have quite a few 2-day passes, okay? What I need you to do is text Reds Fest to 937-518-1410. If you text Reds Fest to 937-518-1410, you'll be entered to win a couple of these 2-day passes for Reds Fest next week. You'll have a chance to see Kyle Schwarber. No, you won't. I don't know why I did that. That was mean. Sorry. But no, look, let's not do this thing where we act like the Reds are this horrible team. Their front office irritates the living hell out of me, right? But they're a good team. You know, we talk about the Reds as if, we talk about the Reds as if they were the Bengals where they've missed the playoffs for 3 straight years. At least this Reds team is coming off of a playoff appearance. And at the very least, okay, you always got to ask yourself if, with the way the season, with where we're at right now, is the Reds roster better than what it was when the season ended? The Reds roster last year led them to the playoffs. It had deficiencies. The Reds addressed some of those deficiencies. Are the Reds better today than what they were when the season ended at the end of, in October? Technically, yes. They're not winning a World Series. I don't think they're winning this division. But they have Terry Francona. They have Ellie De La Cruz. They have Hunter Green. That's my concern about this Reds run, is that we're not going to enjoy it because we're more worried about what's not on the roster than paying attention to what is. And then I'm also afraid to approach that direction with you guys because I don't want you to let the front office off the hook either. Like, I want you to be pissed that the front office isn't doing what they should be doing, but also let's not overlook how lucky we are to be following a team that has an Ellie De La Cruz and a Hunter Green and a Nick Lodolo and an Andrew Abbott, and the list goes on and on. Like, that's kind of where I'm at. But this isn't a Red segment. We'll get back into the Red segment coming up here in just a moment. I want to give a shout-out. Jason Fitz just joined us. We all know what happened. Last night when the show ended, John Harbaugh was let go by the Baltimore Ravens. And I see a lot of people ripping the Ravens for this. I don't think it's that bad of a decision. He was there for 18 years, and for 7 years as the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson, although he did help lead him to 2 MVPs, this team consistently dominated in the regular season, consistently falls short. Guys like McDermott is going to be fired if the Buffalo Bills don't make the playoffs. Or I'm sorry, if the Buffalo Bills get knocked out this weekend, this is why if I'm John Harbaugh, I sit back. I don't take any of these jobs yet. Same thing with Kevin Stefanski. If I'm Kevin Stefanski, I don't take a job. I don't take the Giants job right now. I don't take the Raiders job. I wait to see what happens in Buffalo. Possibly wait to see what happens with the Pittsburgh Steelers. As shocked as everybody is that the Baltimore Ravens moved on from John Harbaugh, there is a good chance that the Pittsburgh Steelers could also do the same thing with Mike Tomlin. Because it's not, I keep saying, look at all the winning that they've done in Pittsburgh with Mike Tomlin. Look at all the winning that they've done in Baltimore with John Harbaugh. It's not a what have you done for me lately kind of thing, but it also is where are we right now? And where we're at right now is we want to get to that next level. They lost faith that Harbaugh could take them to where they, even though he's taken them there before, he's taken them to a Super Bowl and won a Super Bowl before. They don't feel like he could do it again, which is why it's funny. Because I laugh at the Cincinnati Bengals who, Mike Brown the other day said, we've seen Duke Tobin and Zach Taylor lead them to championships or at least a championship before. So we know he could do it again. Well, imagine if the Ravens had that same stuck in the mud mentality that the Bengals did. That's great that it worked 2 years ago, but the circumstances are different, and a lot of it is self-inflicted wounds. And maybe that's what the Ravens just say. We need a fresh voice, a new way of doing things, because we've spent a lot of money on this roster, and we can't just keep making the wild card or just winning the division and not having anything else to show for it. We need to get to a Super Bowl. And to not make the playoffs in a year where there's no Joe Burrow and no Patrick Mahomes there, kind of a problem. But John Harbaugh, I don't mind the Ravens moving on from him. But can you imagine, by the way, if the Bills get knocked out of the playoffs this weekend and they get beat by the Jaguars? Who's favored in that, by the way? I feel like I asked this yesterday. My apologies. Great radio here. Don't care, though. So coming up, the Bills and the Jaguars. So Buffalo is at Jacksonville. Buffalo is a 1.5 favorite. Realistically, Buffalo could lose this weekend. Vegas isn't super confident in them. They are giving them the edge, even though they're on the road. It's basically a pick 'em, and they made a 1.5 favorite on the road at Jacksonville. I mean, my goodness. So I'm going to go ahead and point this out, that if Buffalo loses this weekend, I could see them saying, hey, you know what? We also have to do what the Ravens did and say, we know McDermott's a hell of a coach. We know Harbaugh's a heck of a coach, and the Steelers need to make a decision on Tomlin. We know he's a heck of a coach. We know you could do great things leading a team, but can you continue to do great things leading this team? That's the big question mark. The Bills will move on from McDermott if they lose this weekend, and I think that they will. I'm picking Jacksonville. Hell, I could see, honestly, even if Buffalo wins this weekend, I could see them firing McDermott if they lose in the divisional round. So it's just one of those things where if I'm John Harbaugh, okay, I'm having to look at the Browns, I'm having to look at the Raiders and the Giants, or I might look at Josh Allen and the Bills. A great quarterback who can make plays with his legs, who also has a great run game and a solid defense. I mean, Harbaugh to the Bills, it makes a lot of sense. McDermott to the Browns, maybe McDermott to the Ravens. Maybe they just switch coaches. Who knows? But John Harbaugh to the Browns, you heard Jason Fitz, who we just had on right now. I asked Jason Fitz, what's the likelihood that they get him, and it all comes down to, well, it's not just Harbaugh having to ask this question. It's any coach that's available has to ask this question. And say, what does Cleveland have? And you start to ask yourself, okay, well, are they the worst job available right now? Is the Cleveland Browns, is that the worst? If you are a free agent head coach like John Harbaugh, and you have a pick of the litter of all these jobs, you have the Giants, you have the Raiders, right? You have the Cardinals. There's a lot of these jobs that are open, the Browns. And everyone out there, the Titans, everyone's like, well, the Browns, that's the worst. I wouldn't touch that job. Well, what job would you touch? Because John Harbaugh, the best job available is the Baltimore Ravens, and Harbaugh's not going to go back to the team that just let him go. Doesn't make sense. So it's about, where are you now? Yes, but realistically, where could you go? What's the big picture look like? You got to take into account the owner. Is the owner willing to spend and be aggressive? This is why everyone out there, I saw the stupidest piece written by The Athletic when they said, man, if the Bengals do move on from Zach Taylor, they're going to be the belle of the coaching ball. And I said, no, they absolutely will not be. Oh, what do you mean? Every coach will line up to coach Joe Burrow. Yes, but how many coaches are going to line up to play for that ownership and that crappy GM? I think that Mike Brown and Duke Tobin kind of neutralize the lure of wanting to coach Joe Burrow. And I'm not saying nobody will want to take the job, but I don't think it's going to be the belle of the coaching ball. I think as a coach, you want an owner that's going to be aggressive and willing to spend money. And you got to be, all these teams have deficiencies. So I could sit there and tell you why the Giants is a bad job. I could tell you why the Browns is a bad job, why the Raiders. But what makes them a good job? So when you start putting a list together of, okay, what's the best job? If you had to rank the head coaching vacancies and you had to rank them, okay, I'll put a little music behind. If you had to look at the best available job to the worst, where would the Browns rank amongst those? All right. The bottom line is, I asked Jason Fitz, is the Browns the worst job available right now? This is what Jason Fitz had to say.
Take your fan hat off. Maybe the best unit of many of these bad openings belongs to Cleveland's defense, right?
Yeah.
So, if you look at it and say, well, man, half of this equation is solved right now, I just got to solve the other half. I actually don't think Cleveland is as bad a job as some people want to make it. And also, by the way, the Browns were patient with Stefanski. So I feel like they gave him a real shot at the job. So I think you stack those things up. I think it's just an easy narrative to say, well, this job sucks. Right now, I would take the Browns over the Jets all day, every day, twice on Sunday.
Well, he said he would take the Browns over the Jets. Well, the Jets don't have a head coaching opening right now, but that's the point. Like, the Jets are the Browns are not the worst run organization in football. The Browns have a crap ton of talent. They have a top 5 defense. They just nailed the draft last year, and they have 2 first-round picks. How can Cleveland be the worst job open right now? Call me a homer. I just don't see it. So here's my list. I went ahead and I ranked these from the best, from best to worst, ranking the available NFL head coaching jobs, okay? So I went ahead and I ranked these from best to worst. I think the best job, this isn't a hot take, the Ravens is the best job. I mean, my goodness. If you're Kevin Stefanski, why are you wasting time with the Giants? And I like the Giants job because they also have a quarterback, but this isn't difficult. If you're Brian Daboll, if you're Kevin Stefanski, I'm very interested I'm a Mike McCarthy guy. I think Mike McCarthy in Baltimore, Mike McCarthy in the Giants, Mike McCarthy, who got an interview with the Giants. I want Mike McCarthy in Cleveland. I like Mike McCarthy. But if you're any of those top available head coaching candidates, the Ravens is the easiest one to pick right there. The Giants, I put it number 2. All right, I ripped the Giants a little bit ago because everyone out there that says, oh, they are for sure a way better franchise than the Browns. They are a way better market than the Browns. I don't think that they are a way better franchise than the Browns at this point, especially in the last, recent history, especially. So I look at where they're at right now. I like the Giants. I like the weapons they have on defense. I like Malik Neighbors, and I like Jackson Dart. I just don't like his attitude and his approach to things. He's stubborn. He had so many people tell him he needs to change his playing style, and he refuses to. If they can get that switched up, I think the Giants are the second best available opening right now. I have the Browns at number 3. You can mock me all you want. The Browns it's a better job than the Titans. It's a better job than the Raiders, Falcons, and Cardinals. And you could say, well, how is it better than the Titans? They have a quarterback. Do they? They selected a quarterback last year. I don't know if they have a quarterback. Cam Ward? Shedeur Sanders looked better than Cam Ward this year, and Shedeur Sanders didn't look all that great. I think the Browns are the third best vacant job right now. You heard Jason Fitz just say it. They have, if you look at the roster as a whole, they're the only team outside of the Ravens that you can look at and say they have a dominant side of the ball. The Giants don't have a dominant defense or a dominant offense. They're balanced. That's why I have them above the Browns, because I think they have a little bit of everything. But the Titans, the Raiders, the Falcons, the Cardinals, they don't have a dominant side of the ball at all. The Browns have a dominant defense, which means you have half the equation figured out, as you heard Jason say. Cleveland, they fix that offensive line and provide, whether it's Deshaun Watson or Shedeur Sanders, a wide receiver or 2. They can run the football with Quinshawn and Sampson. They just have to be an average offense with that defense to start winning football games. Not winning the division, not winning a Super Bowl. But again, you're not taking a job for who you're going to be next year. You're taking a job for who you're going to be big picture. And you have Myles Garrett. You have talent on that defensive side of the ball. And you have great weapons on the offensive side of the ball that just needs to be fine-tuned. And, oh, yeah, you have an owner that's willing to spend money. You can't say that about the Titans. The Raiders, they make all the worst mistakes possible. The Falcons, the Cardinals, I'm sorry. The Browns, to me, come in at number 3 on the list. I put Titans at 4 just because they, if Cam Ward is the guy, you do have another top draft pick this year, so you can go get the best of whoever you want to get. I put the Raiders at 5, Falcons at 6, and the Cardinals at 7. The Cardinals, what about them is interesting? Nothing. The quarterback is a very expensive average quarterback. Nothing on defense excites me. Marvin Harrison Jr., who I was a big fan of at Ohio State, has not been a Malik Neighbors. I think Jeremiah Smith is already better than him, and he's not even in the NFL yet. So I have the Browns at 3. 937-518-1410. Text into the show. I have the Browns as the third best job opening right now. So this idea that they have no shot at John Harbaugh, I disagree with wholeheartedly. I believe they have a legit shot. A legit shot. Because if you're basing it just on the job openings out there, Cleveland's not a good job, then what job is? I like the Giants. But outside of that, I think Cleveland, they have way more than you think. They're a lot closer than you think compared to everybody else. Outside, of course, the Giants and the Ravens. 937-518-1410. We're on the Justin Kinder Show YouTube channel as well. I see Shaw's taken there. I'm going to get to that. Text me your list. Where do the Browns rank amongst the 7 vacant job openings right now? 937-518-1410. We'll be right back.
The Justin Kinner Show. Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Staples presents That Was Easy.
This year, I'm giving my hair salon a total makeover.
Total makeover sounds totally expensive.
We updated our logo and colors, so I needed to print new signage, brochures, business cards, everything.
Everything will not be cheap.
Staples did it all, and I saved $100 on my order.
$100? Trim my whiskers, that's a good deal. For everything your business needs to print, let's go Staples.
That was easy.
Offer valid in-store and online. Ends 131. Exclusions apply. Visit staples.com/print for details.
Did you know that Apple started in a garage? Google started in a garage. So did Amazon and Hewlett-Packard. At the next rodeo, we have nothing against garages, but this is for those burgeoning businesses that started in backyards, bedrooms, bathrooms, kitchens, home offices, and also garages. Small businesses with smaller beginnings that were looked down on, tucked down too, but had the smarts to survive and the grit to grow. And now they're ready for the next chapter, the next level. Now they're ready for the next rodeo. The Next Rodeo is a creative partner that brings world-class thinking to companies who know where they're going, no matter where they came from. The Next Rodeo. The difference between the business you have and the business you want is one great idea. Get the full story at thenextrodeo.com.
Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like needing a lawyer, but getting some guy who just watches courtroom dramas.
How does the defendant plead?
Guilty.
Wait, what?
Also, objection.
You object to what?
Erroneous.
Counsel, approach the bench.
Hey, can I get a whack at the gavel?
You wouldn't settle for just any lawyer, so don't settle for just any insurance. Get the real deal with State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Progressive Insurance can protect your home and auto. And you can save money when you bundle your home and auto. Get a quote at Progressive.com. That's Progressive.com.
It's easy to think of winter as a time when not much is happening in the landscape or in the pest and disease world. However, there are a couple of services that can help your trees and shrubs during the colder months, like horticultural oil and anti-desiccant applications. Visit trees4ohio.org. That's trees4ohio.org to learn more and to find an ISA-certified arborist in your area who is trained and has the proper equipment to perform your tree work safely.
With Progressive Insurance, you could save big when you bundle your auto, home, motorcycle, RV, or boat insurance. Visit Progressive.com for more information. That's Progressive.com.
Have you heard? Bath Creations has moved to their new location and showroom at 8741 North Kimmel Road in Clayton. This gives you even more opportunity to see the incredible amenities and craftsmanship Bath Creation offers. With Bath Creations, you get a beautiful, modern bathroom that is safe, comfortable, and affordable. Attention first responders, veterans, and active military. Save an additional $500 off your purchase. Visit at 8741 North Kimmel Road in Clayton or online at mybathcreations.com and get a new bath today.
Staples presents That Was Easy.
This year, it was important for my business to start strong.
Starting weak is not recommended.
But first, I needed a lot of stuff for the office.
Sounds like a shopping spree.
I just went to Staples. They have great prices on everything, like ink, toner, printers, paper, and chairs. And now you can get up to 30% off select HP printers.
Up to 30% off HP printers? Am I on a hidden camera show?
No.
Well then, let's go Staples.
That was easy.
Shop Staples in-store, online, or on the app. Ends 131. Select models only.
The Justin Kinner Show. Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. Now, back to the Justin Kinner Show. Right here on ESPN Dayton, 1410 Wing AM.
And we are back, the Justin Kinner Show, live here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM, live on the Justin Kinner Show YouTube channel. Make sure you're following along and subscribing there. 937-518-1410, that's the number that you can call or text. best to worst, we're ranking the available NFL head coaching jobs right now. And look, there's 7 of them. You have the Falcons, the Raiders, the Titans, the Giants, Browns, Ravens, which was a surprising one that came down yesterday. And I think I said the Cardinals, but if not the Cardinals, the Raiders are in there, Titans, all that fun stuff. Okay. There's 7 job openings. Now, as we head into the weekend, there's this idea that, if you're in the playoffs, why would you fire your head coach? I think there's some coaches who are heading into the playoffs that you do have to wonder about. Sirianni is one of those where I think he's okay, but there was a lot of, there's been drama the last couple of years. Now, last year you win a Super Bowl, you kind of drown that out, not a big deal, right? But if they go out and they go out ugly against the Niners because that offense has struggled throughout the year, it will be interesting. Now, they're a 4.5-point favorite at home this coming up weekend. But, the Eagles could say, hey, we've won a Super Bowl with Sirianni. We don't really want to continue risking the drama that kind of comes with Sirianni at times. And there is a very, very future Hall of Fame coach in John Harbaugh available. Can you imagine the Eagles with Harbaugh? Because that's the one thing that I did hear ESPN's Adam Schefter bring up is that right away it all keeps coming down to the teams that need a head coach right now are the ones that are reaching out to Harbaugh. There's teams who have a current head coach that are reaching out to Harbaugh. And I'm looking at playoff teams and I'm thinking, yeah, there's quite a few teams I could see that would maybe be interested in a coaching change. I think that the Eagles could potentially be one of those, as crazy as that sounds. I look at the Buffalo Bills. If you get knocked out in the wild card or the divisional round, and they are a 1.5 favorite on the road at Jacksonville this weekend, this Sunday night or Sunday afternoon, I should say. They're kind of the Bills and Ravens were in the same boat, and a lot of that has to do with the success of the Kansas City Chiefs, because the Chiefs, this is the first time since Patrick Mahomes was drafted that they're not in the AFC Championship game. So there's not a whole lot of opportunities to get there outside, of course, the Bengals year. So there hasn't been a whole lot of window there. So the Bills and the Ravens, their front offices are like, okay, we know we have a good coach. We win a lot of games. But we need we need something different. We need a new voice in this locker room because we can't just keep doing the same thing over and over and over. To be honest, sometimes it works against you. Look, we saw this in Cincinnati years ago when they fired Marvin Lewis. And that's the other thing. Shaw, you were arguing earlier that it was dumb of the Ravens to move on from Harbaugh. It's the same thing. Like the Bengals moved on from Marvin Lewis because, hey, thank you so much. We keep making the playoffs year after year after year, but we're just not getting it done when we get there. We need a different voice to come in here and shake it up. Now, did it work? No. But it also doesn't mean that they were wrong for saying, Marvin Lewis, we got to try something different. From a baseball perspective, I was a Dusty Baker guy. Very similar to the Marvin Lewis and the Bengals situation. Okay, we keep making the playoffs, but we keep losing. So let's just get a different voice in here and see what happens. Welcome, Brian Price. It wasn't pretty. But you guys see my point. Like this isn't unheard of. This happens all the time. The Browns moving on from Stefanski. It's because the same thing. The Bills will do it with McDermott if they lose this weekend. We can't keep winning and winning and winning and just having nothing to show for it. Maybe a new voice, a new direction will kind of help get us over that hump. It is what it is. I mean, you Michael Jordan lovers out there think, you think back to when they had Collins as their head coach. They were winning a lot of games. They were getting to the playoffs, but they just felt we need a different voice. We're missing something. We know we're good. We're winning games. We're getting to the playoffs, but we need that Phil Jackson. So everyone's chasing their Phil Jackson because everyone looks at their McDermott as their Doug Collins. Lamar, John Harbaugh, a little bit different because he's won a Super Bowl for them, but you guys know what I mean. Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland. We have our Doug Collins where we're winning, although Cleveland was not winning these last 2 years. But we need that extra voice to come in and push us over the top. That's McDermott in Buffalo. So the Ravens found themselves in that situation. And I think that's kind of where we're at. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But I could see the Bills making a change. I could see the Eagles making a change. Guys, what if the Packers want to make a change? Because that's another one that right now everyone kind of has circled that coach and said, hey, you know what? It's kind of one of those things where he's due for a contract extension and they haven't extended him. Like when their season ends, he doesn't have a contract right now. So LaFleur, the Packers could be saying, you know what? We have Jordan Love. We have Micah Parsons. We have really good talent on both sides of the ball. Harbaugh, come here and help get us over that, get us, past that finish line. So I look at the Packers, I look at the Bills, I look maybe the Eagles, and maybe the Steelers. I don't know. There's a lot of people out there saying that, hey, the Ravens Steelers, it wasn't just for a game to get to the playoffs. It was for a game to, it was for the coaches to keep their jobs. It's one of those where the Steelers won't fire Mike Tomlin. It'll be a parting of ways a little bit. But it's a very similar situation as Harbaugh over there with the Ravens. No one saw that coming. And it won't surprise me if the Steelers move on from Mike Tomlin. I've been saying that they need to change the scene. They either need to full-on approach a rebuild as far as, okay, we're not going to keep Mike Tomlin's 500 streak going. We are going to blow this up. We're going to trade TJ Watt. We're going to trade our expensive defensive players away. We're going to load up on draft picks, and we're going to start over. And Mike Tomlin, you could either lead that or we're going to let you go so you can go elsewhere. That's kind of where I'm at with Pittsburgh. But let's see what Aaron Rodgers and company does. Pittsburgh's at home on Monday night. They don't lose on Monday night. We'll see what happens there. But fascinating playoffs coming up. But yeah, everyone just associating John Harbaugh to teams who currently have head coaching openings. I could see one or two of these teams in the playoffs now, maybe even up to 4, who decide we're not going to keep our coach. We got to shake it up a bit. And Harbaugh might push teams to do that. Not him personally, but his presence being available as far as that goes. 937-518-1410, ranking the best to worst, ranking the available NFL head coaching jobs, at least as we sit here right now. Going to the chat real quick. Again, we're live on the Justin Kinder Show YouTube channel. David Shaw says the best available. He has the Ravens at 1. He said the Browns, he believes that they are the second best head coaching opening right now. He has the Giants at 3, the Falcons at 4. The Titans at 5, Cardinals at 6, and the Raiders at 7. Now, shout out to Kev Nash. Kev Nash is listening right now. He texted into the show. He said that he has the Ravens at 1. He has the Falcons at 2, the Giants at 3, the Browns at 4, Cardinals 5, Titans 6, and the Raiders at 7. So, again, I think a lot of people are out on the Raiders. I have the Raiders at 5 on my list. Nonetheless, so we'll see. Justin on YouTube says, you keep talking about Tomlin like the Steelers aren't going to still be playing games next week. Super Bowl run, baby. Tomlin's job is safe. Maybe. I don't think so. I don't think, McDermott's, the Bills are still playing. I don't think McDermott's job is safe. Sirianni just won a Super Bowl a year ago. I don't think his job is safe. There's a lot of drama there too. All the constant noise with A.J. Brown, and there's a lot of stuff going on. Keith Byers, who played for the Eagles, he's brought up times, hey, there's stuff going on there, that I'll leave it at that. There's stuff going on. It's messy. So but last year it was messy, and that didn't get in the way. But if it gets in the way this year, you don't want to have to blow up this roster that they worked so hard to put together. You want to get a voice in there that's going to kind of glue it back together. So, Justin, I disagree. I'm not guaranteeing that Tomlin's out, but man, you get back to the playoffs and you get knocked out in the first round again. By the way, I'm an Aaron Rodgers guy, and it's been painful because it's like I would celebrate a nice throw from Aaron Rodgers and then be pissed off that the Steelers converted on a play, a first down or a touchdown or whatever. I was torn that night that they won. But, man, if he can't get it done, if the Steelers can't get it done on Monday, it's the same old, same old. Congrats, Mike Tomlin. You're above 500. You make the playoffs. The standard is the standard. I don't think the standard is the wild card in all Pittsburgh. The steel curtain is more like the shower curtain. I'm not intimidated by the Steelers anymore. They need to get that standard back to the standard is not 9 wins, baby. The standard is not wild carding out, baby. And if it is, then no, you're right, Justin. Mike Tomlin's not going anywhere because the standard's the standard, and they're reaching it. So there's that. But 937-518-1410. Justin says Pittsburgh can beat any team in the AFC except maybe the Patriots. DK is going to come back with the vengeance. I'd just be thrilled to see them make it through the first round for a change. That's fair. I would say, and I think it's like the line isn't even that crazy for that game. The Steelers are 3-point dogs at home, so I think that's going to be a good one too. Because Texans have been inconsistent offensively, but they have they've caught fire as of late. It would be nice to see C.J. Stroud and the Texans They've made the playoffs every year since he's been drafted, and they've won a game in the playoffs every year since being drafted, including knocking out Joe Flacco and my Cleveland Browns a few years ago, which was a painful pill to swallow. A lot of good games in the NFL this weekend in the playoffs. That's it's going to be a fun weekend. You got obviously the semifinals for the college football playoffs. The NFL playoffs are kicking off, and yet here we are, Browns and Bengals fans, like a bunch of losers talking about coaches and free agency and off seasons and yada and draft. It's that time of year to talk about the draft. All right, guys. 937-518-1410. If you are interested in attending Reds Fest, I have some Reds Fest 2-day passes right here. Okay. All you got to do to enter to win these is to text Reds Fest to 937-518-1410. Okay, January 16th and 17th. It's at the Cincinnati Convention Center, Friday and Saturday. I have a handful of these guest passes right here, 2-day passes. So that's pretty unique. Text Reds Fest to 937-518-1410. We'll be giving these away for the next week. So, again, when you text us, we will. If you are selected as the winner, more directions will be, sent to you for how you can access these passes. So keep that in mind. Reds Fest, text it to 937-518-1410. More of the Justin Kinner Show when we come back.
The Justin Kinner Show. Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Progressive knows life takes you in many directions.
Bear right at exit 32, then begin to wonder why you never bought a fish tank. In 1.3 miles, you'll realize you've been mispronouncing epitome your whole life. At the roundabout, you will remember you said something at dinner you wish you hadn't and will think about it for decades. You have arrived at your destination, but it turns out there really is no destination and life just keeps going.
Wherever life takes you, protect your home and auto with a bundle from Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states or situations.
You're still grooving, still connecting, still loving, still turning up, still thriving. You still got it, but your immune system, it weakens as you age. That's where vaccines come in. They help train and strengthen your immune response to fight off respiratory illnesses like flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, RSV, or COVID-19. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Book in minutes at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
When you think of the most exciting team in Dayton, it's okay if you don't think of the doctors and therapists at Premier Health. We don't have jerseys or trading cards. We don't get primetime coverage. We don't sell out arenas, have good drip, or autograph sessions. We're just happy to be your team's favorite team.
The ONN Daily Podcast. Get a recap of all the day's news from across the state.
ONN affiliate WBNS TV in Columbus has more.
Haley Kirby, reporting in downtown Toledo.
From the State House, Kevin Landers.
ONN Canton.
ONN affiliate WKYC TV in Cleveland explains.
In Marietta, Brett Wharf, ONN News.
Emma Henderson in Genoa.
The ONN Daily Podcast. Listen at ONNradio.com or wherever you download your favorite podcasts from the Ohio News Network.
Have you heard? Bath Creations has moved to their new location and showroom at 8741 North Kimmel Road in Clayton. This gives you even more opportunity to see the incredible amenities and craftsmanship Bath Creation offers. With Bath Creations, you get a beautiful, modern bathroom that is safe, comfortable, and affordable. Attention first responders, veterans, and active military. Save an additional $500 off your purchase. Visit at 8741 North Kimmel Road in Clayton or online at mybathcreations.com and get a new bath today.
Get organized and save big money with Dakota Closets at Menards. Dakota Closets can be installed in any room, from home offices and laundry rooms to walk-in or reach-in closets. Use the You Create Closet Planner, available in-store or online, to design a Dakota Closet system that maximizes your space and matches your style. Plus, check out our weekly flyer on Menards.com for more great deals happening this week.
Save big money at Menards.
Hi, this is Dr. Justin with Dayton Weight Loss Secret. Have you been asking yourself, what is the secret to getting my excess weight off fast and easy like a lot of other people seem to be doing? The secret is Dayton Weight Loss Secret. Our program helps you lose weight fast and easy with no exercise, no prepackaged meals, no drugs, and no surgery, no injections, and no need to be hungry. Our program helps reset your metabolism to keep the weight off for good. Schedule your free consultation at DaytonWeightLossSecret.com.
I was pre-diabetic before I started this, and I'm not anymore. I've gotten rid of medications. I mean, there is nothing better I can say except it will change your whole life.
The Dayton Weight Loss Secret program has successfully helped thousands of people lose up to 20 to 30 pounds in a month or two. Schedule your free consultation in person or virtually by calling 937-800-1070 or online at DaytonWeightLossSecret.com. Results may vary.
2026 is here, and at Staples, deals mean business, like up to $100 off custom print orders. Head into the new year looking good for less. Staples, that was easy. Ends January 31st.
At Advent, nasal congestion and sinus infections can be solved with an in-office 20-minute procedure. Elsewhere, expect surgery.
The Justin Kinner Show. Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. Now, back to the Justin Kinner Show. Right here on ESPN Dayton, 1410 Wing AM.
Well, it feels weird talking about bracketology so early in the year. I mean, it's only January 7th, but I don't know if you guys checked it out. So bracketology, so Joe Lenardi, ESPN, actually just spoke with him. He's going to be coming on with us at the end of the month, heading into February. Then he's going to come on with us again in February because he's pretty high on a couple of our teams around here. Dayton's kind of played their way out of the at-large conversation, but they got a big win last night against George Washington, and they've strung together a couple big wins over the last week, and they've done it shorthanded. I mean, literally, they're bigs. They've been without any of their key bigs, but they got a big win. I mean, they were at Loyola. Loyola's not very good, and it looked like Dayton was about to lose a big one on the road, but they muscled back and they were able to hold off Loyola and get a big win on the road. And then last night, George Washington, one of the top teams in the A-10, they were able to hold them off at home last night to get a big one while they're shorthanded. They don't have their full roster together, but they're not in the at-large conversation right now, but they could play their way back onto the bubble, which is something that they've consistently done in recent years. It always comes back to them. They have big wins on their schedule, but they just lose. The Anthony Grant era has always been about putting guys in the league and playing down to your opponent. And that's what has always put, that's just been the highlight. The highlight is, the 2020 season, of course, but Anthony Grant is just consistently. I mean, last night when I saw Montgomery and I saw these guys, like the look in their eyes, I'm like, well, yeah, when they're playing George Washington and they're playing a good team, but they nearly lost to Loyola over the weekend. So it's hard for me to get excited when they get wins against good quality teams, because it's like they'll take 2 steps forward and 3 steps backwards. And that to me is just signs of not a well-coached team when, what is it? I mean, Anthony Grant doesn't have to get them fired up to play the good teams. It's up to a coaching staff to get them to be fired up to go, find ways to win against bad teams. Now, to their credit, they did that against Loyola this past weekend, but can they consistently do it over the next 2 months to play their way back into the bubble? That's going to be the conversation there. But Wright State, ESPN's Joe Lenardi, it's crazy. I know bracketology so early, but Joe Lenardi has Wright State currently as a 14 seed going up against Nebraska in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Wright State's off to a very good start this season, especially in conference play. I know they're 9-7, but they played a very tough non-conference schedule. And right now, since Horizon League play started, they're 4-1 in conference play. Their only loss against another top Horizon League team in Youngstown State. They lost by 1 point on the road. And since then, according to the Horizon League preseason poll, you had Milwaukee at the top, you had Oakland at the top. Wright State beat both of them last week at the Nutter Center. They just beat IU-Indy this past Sunday. And, of course, they're going to be turning their attention towards, heading to Detroit this weekend. They got Detroit on Friday and then Oakland, a return game there. So we'll see where they're at coming back, from the road games stretch coming up. But Wright State, as far as what they have coming up when they return home, we carry all Wright State basketball games right here on 1410 ESPN Radio, but we'll also be giving away tickets to the Raiders' next home game as well. They're going to be at Detroit coming up this weekend. Obviously, I mentioned the Oakland game, the return game, so they have that, but they're going to return home against Youngstown State on January 15th. It's a Thursday night. If you want tickets or a chance to win tickets, text Raiders 937-518-1410. Text Raiders to 937-518-1410 for your chance to come away with some tickets to see the Wright State Raiders at the Nutter Center when they return home. But yeah, Joe Lenardi has them as a 14 seed as we currently sit here right now in early January, nonetheless. All right, I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show. How about, so again, this isn't a surprise right here. Ohio State star safety Caleb Downs. I don't know why I said Downs like I have an accent. I don't know where that, I am from Texas. Every once in a while, the weird little like twang in my voice comes out. No idea where it comes from. Well, Texas, I might have just told you. But the bottom line is Caleb Downs, has declared for the NFL draft that came out earlier today. Not a shocker there. Ohio State star safety Caleb Downs is leaving Ohio State early and declaring for the NFL draft. He announced on social media earlier today. Now, he is projected as a top 10 pick. Right now that's significant because Caleb Downs projected to be a top 10 pick in ESPN draft analyst Jordan Reed's current rankings. No safety has been picked in the top 10 since the Jets took Jamal Adams with the number 6 pick back in 2017. Now, the reason that this is significant is because we talk about the Bengals and their need to improve the defense. The Bengals have a top 10 pick. They're currently sitting at number 10, and there's been a handful of mock drafts out there that do have the Bengals taking Caleb Downs at number 10. And I think that would be a universe. Like, there's not a lot of picks that the Bengals can make that would be universally loved. Like last year, I don't think there was one pick where everyone was like universally in acceptance of it. I think even non-Bengals fans like myself, I would applaud them for that. That's an easy one. That's an easy one. Now, don't worry, Duke Tobin will, I'm sure, mess it up, a backup kicker or something, but Duke Tobin, he talks all the time. He's not interested in making other teams better. That was my favorite line. When the rumors of the Bengals potentially trading T. Higgins, he came out and said, "I'm not interested in making other teams better." I'm like, yeah, well, how about you show a little interest in making your team better? But Caleb Downs, that makes all the sense in the world for the Bengals at 10. The Chiefs, though, are another team to look out. The Chiefs are also in need of a safety, but they also need help at wide receiver. They need offensive line help. It'll be interesting to see what direction that the Chiefs decide to go in, because they have some of the similar needs that the Bengals do as well. But Caleb Downs to the Bengals would be massive if that ends up being the case. So we'll keep an eye on that. Again, it's mock draft season, baby. So that's what's interesting. Another draft news too. Simpson, the quarterback, Ty Simpson, the quarterback for Alabama, did announce that he's going to be entering the draft. He says how grateful he is for every single second that he got to spend at Alabama. But, he was able to make it to the playoff, win a playoff game, but they're looking forward to turning his attention towards pursuing an NFL career. So there's that. But either way, we'll talk more Ohio State coming up throughout the week. One thing I did ask Jason Fitz was about, did Ohio State underachieve this year? And this is going to be a topic that we spend more time on tomorrow's show. But did Ohio State underachieve? That's what I'm kind of curious about, Buckeye fans. Like, do you believe that that Ohio State underachieved this season? Now, he said no. I disagree a little bit. I disagree. I think it's tough for me to say that Ohio State didn't underachieve when, you're the number one team in the country pretty much all season. You go undefeated, and you're the favorites to win the national championship heading in, and you lose your last 2 games of the season. I disagree. I'd say wholeheartedly, yes, that this team definitely underachieved with the way that the season wrapped up. And I could see if it was more of a competitive game, and I know that it was, the scores showed that it was close, but I feel like Miami dominated that game. Even when Ohio State started making plays in the second half, I felt like Ohio State was trying to play to Miami versus making Miami play to them. Ohio State all season made teams play to them. They were chasing Miami. And that's a problem. The way they lost Indiana, the way they lost to Miami, to me, I do believe that they underachieved. But either way, we'll spend more time on that as we get closer to it. But 937-518-1410. We'll step away. We'll take your calls. We'll jump back into this Browns Harbaugh conversation. If you missed our conversation with Jason Fitz from Yahoo Sports, we have that coming up as well again. So more of the Justin Kinner Show here on a Wednesday when we return.